Welcome to Fashion Neurosis, John Malkovich.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell me what you're wearing today and why you chose these particular clothes?
I chose these particular clothes. We're trying to sell our place in France, so I brought a lot of stuff from France, which had just been sitting in closets for years. The pants and the jacket are from Techno Bohemian, which was the name of the second line I did, and the shirt is from the last line, which just had my name, which I don't think was a great idea, but that's okay. So that's what I'm wearing today. Why is harder because we were in Lacoste where you've been last week, and it was just blazing hot. It was incredibly hot. And then I saw that in the mornings it's going to be quite cool here mostly. So this is just one of the things I brought to take back to America because it's just been sitting in a closet for 5 years or something in France.
I must say the fabric of those trousers is amazing. I'm just at the phase, I'm just trying to find a few more fabrics. And I remember when we used to go to Premier Vision, the fabric fair together, and you introduced me to some mills where they were really good, and I must find out where that's from.
Yeah.
It's so
this,
good.
I believe, is a company who does a lot, big quantity of stuff and quite good quality called Subalpino. And it's just a cavalry twill, very fine kind of cotton.
I love that kind of weave. It's great.
Yeah, they're very good. I used a lot of their stuff over the years.
And we've known each other for many years, and I've never met anyone with the level of obsession with clothes that you do. And in fact,
sadly true.
Not many people in fashion have it to the degree that you do. And I wondered, where does this come from, and how did your family dress?
My father was quite good looking, and he was quite an elegant man, but very simple. And he looked fantastic kind of in anything. My grandmother had pretty good taste, actually, and bought most of our family's clothes, or at least paid for them, because she owned the newspaper in our little town. But I think I was always obsessed with clothes. I can't really say why. I was always obsessed with looking at photos of adults and of elegant people. And I think when I grew up, it was a much more elegant time then. Pretty much every man wore a suit every day, which I did for many, many years. Good, probably 20 years or so, I wore a suit every day.
Wow.
I don't know why, really. It could have to do with when I was a young kid and up to the age of 15, I think, or so, I was heavy. So I couldn't, it was hard to find clothes that fit clothes that I liked.
Yeah.
So it could be partially due to that, but partially that interest was always there. And I always loved to go see what people make. And I don't think it's so much about me, because just yesterday, say I was at the Dover Street Market and looking at designers. I didn't see any men's thing when I was there, but just to go and look at things to see what people are doing has always interested me, and I've always had a deep fascination for it. Often very specific opinions about what I see. But I always found it a fascinating occupation or calling, however one wants to describe it. I don't know why, and I don't even know if I'd be capable of thinking about it very profoundly. I don't know. But it's something, when I would go to the fabric fair where I over many years often saw you there, I loved going around looking at hundreds of thousands of pieces of fabric every fair. Just an incredible amount. And I always felt like I could have done 50 lines with completely different fabric choices every time.
I know, you've always had that kind of, that fabric fair is one of the most grueling and soul-destroying experiences. And I remember once, back in the early days of Alexander McQueen, bumping into him, sitting there, eating a gigantic baguette and just saying, I hate this place. How do you manage? And you managed to turn it into something so much more interesting. I loved going around with you. And
I loved it because I'm probably overly obsessed by details, maybe, but I loved it because it always opened up possibilities to me. I was saying to someone the other day about what makes a good director, say, in my day job, which is often acting in plays or movies, or I do a lot of now classical music collaborations. And I think the fabric fair to me is about what I'd say about directors. A director should open a world. They shouldn't close the world.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about going to look at fabrics. I kind of go, oh, well, if I use that, then I could do this like this and not just like that. So although it is grueling and you have fabric in your eyes and in your ears and down your throat and under your fingernails, etc., because it's hard to explain to somebody who's never done it that there are millions of pieces of fabric there, in the many millions, I would think. And to kind of have to narrow that down in this very limited time is a pretty tall task. But I always loved to go and look at it. That's something I never would have complained about it.
And you said in an interview, I had an older brother, and I can remember he and his friends driving by and throwing beer bottles at me because of some outfit choice I'd made in the 6th grade. And I was always interested in how things look and giving some visual cohesion. And I wondered, why did that matter more than the expense of being seriously mocked?
I don't think I really cared about that that much. My brother tortured me most of the time anyway. And chances are, if he was with friends, that would have been a factor that would have lent more gentleness or even humanity to the mockery, rather than if it was just my brother with me. But I think it probably didn't bother me because I always had my interests. And I think I always, somewhere I think I must have known that there's, you and I think have talked about this before. You've done fashion for a long time. I did, I think, 24 collections, full collections. There's a price in life for doing what you want, I think.
Yeah.
And
especially in fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be not just a financial price, but in a lot of other ways. But I think I've kind of been used to that since I was a kid. And if I wanted to experiment with Madras on Madras, then okay, too bad for the rest. And I think I was comfortable with that from the time I was a child, principally because my father not just said, but kind of beat into me the notion that you decide, not me, not your mother, not your teacher, you decide what you're going to do, what you're going to be, how you feel about it, how you regard it, how you think about what you do. And that really filtered into most elements of my life, but more than anything, it filtered into how I work.
Right.
And fashion, I think, is can be a sort of surprisingly profound, maybe not to people who look at it and people who don't care about it, which I understand very well. I'm sure you do too. But to people who care about it, it's a very profound form of expression, of self-expression.
Yeah.
So the idea that I would take, say, being in a movie any more seriously than these buttons, which I just replaced in Poland a month ago because they'd driven me nuts for a year since I first rediscovered this jacket in my closet of friends, because they were way too small for the buttonholes. And anyway, everything about the buttons irritated me. And somebody else probably could care less.
Yeah.
And I understand very well. But I'm not that person.
Yeah, you have that sort of obsessive, compulsive thing that is essential to be in fashion. And I remember first meeting you and listening to you describe a few things and thinking, wow, you've got it, you know. And you described your father as darker than I ever realized. And I wonder how that manifested.
My father, he was... My grandparents were supposedly Croatian. I only say supposedly because we really don't know, because I remember my mother once saying to me, after hearing or reading something where I said I was Croatian, half Croatian, or supposedly half Croatian, she said to me, "Why do you say that? You're Montenegrin." I've heard I'm Slovenian, Bosnian, Serbian. Not that I would care, they're all fine by me. When I finally got my DNA done, according to that, I'm 43% Romanian. My father's father sold mining equipment. He was an immigrant at any rate to America. He went there, I think, in 1913. I found out when I was already in his 50s that I knew he hated his father, who he said was the biggest liar who ever lived. And I knew that wasn't true because my other grandfather was actually the biggest liar that ever lived. And so I knew that was an exaggeration on my father's part, but he really disliked his father, who was very beautiful, and who I found out in his 50s listening to an interview with my father on a university radio station, that he was a Union thug with brass knuckles and a pistol.
Wow.
And my only real memory of him was they didn't have a TV, I think. They would come over to our house, and this is when in America there were 3 channels, and Lassie was on Sunday night, I think before the Walt Disney Hour, if I remember correctly. And my grandfather, my father's father on my father's side, was kind of utterly heartless and very sentimental, but only about Lassie. Like if one of us had fallen off of a building and gone splat, I don't think he would have blinked an eye. But always in the second act of a Lassie drama, Lassie would be in trouble or be being attacked, or Lassie had some very bad luck, what have you, I don't remember. Some disaster befell Lassie. And my grandfather would just, you could see him go into a rage. And he never really learned English, lived there 50 some years. He learned all swear words only, really. And he would watch Lassie and would get there and almost literally be frothing at the mouth. And he would go, "Those sons of bitches." And, you know, you're just a small child and you think, my God, what's wrong with you? It's a TV show. It's a TV show with a dog, with a collie. Calm down. My father normally was a very patient man, very charming, and extremely funny with a great sense of humor. But when he went off, it was best to not be in the area. And I don't think that had a huge influence in my life, to be perfectly honest, except probably as an inheritance and as a warning. So as an inheritance, it became a kind of product that in a certain way I was able to make a very good living from. And as a warning, it was just, when I was a little fat kid, there was a Halloween contest. And the winner with the best costume got $50 silver.
Gosh.
And my father had been an art and journalism major. And, you know, I was a fairly accomplished actor when I was a small child and was great at throwing fits based on real or imagined slights or alleged emotions or wants or desires or needs or what have you. I kept whining about this Halloween contest coming up, and now I really very much needed to win the $50 probably to buy candy bars or whatever, something more to eat. And he took it upon himself finally to say, "Johnny, I'll make your costume. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. I'll do your costume. You'll win the contest, but you shut up." So he drew really beautifully. He made me a Cyclops costume out of an old sheet and some, I don't know, hook or something. And an incredible third eye in the middle of my forehead.
Gosh.
But I don't think the third eye was for a Cyclops one eye. I think it was a kind of message to me to maybe develop a bit of a third eye in the kind of religious sense.
God, that's so interesting.
And of course, my sister won the $50 silver dollars with her store-bought princess outfit, unsurprisingly, in my hometown, which is maybe not the kind of bastion of taste in art, or even fancy dress. But I think it was a kind of lesson to me. As my dad once said to me, I was a baseball pitcher, and pretty good one. And my father once said to me, Johnny, if you cared about playing baseball as much as you cared about the way you look playing baseball, you would be very good. But
so interesting.
I kind of knew then, yes, Dad, but that will never happen. Okay, never. Forget that. And I don't really think that ever changed. Just why is much harder, because I think when we look back at our lives, we misremember much. We underestimate the pulls and tugs and forces that act upon us, including ourselves and our desires and our wants and our needs. But it's hard to say why, but I think I was always like that. And I don't think that ever changed at all.
Because your classmate and close friend Russ Smith said you were training to be an ecologist, but you became infatuated with a cool girl on campus who was studying theatre. And I wondered if you remembered what she was wearing, which attracted you so much to change your career direction.
Yeah, what she was wearing definitely, but also, she looked like Carly Simon.
Wow.
And she had a shag, quite a kind of, in the kind of low spark of high-heeled boys style.
Oh, yeah.
She was called Joanne Kirkland, and she was a potter. And she told me I should take a theater class. It was actually oral interp, it was called, because she was taking it. And she was pretty much a hippie dress girl, so very low-slung bell-bottoms, wide belt, hippie purse, hippie vest, print blouse. That would be the kind of normal uniform.
With the kind of Susie Quattro hair.
Exactly. Yeah.
I loved that hair so much. It was so good. Because I remember seeing you first. I saw you in Burn This at the Hampstead Theatre in 92, playing opposite Juliet Stevenson. And I remember being incredibly shocked by this thing your character said, "I'm out of here." And I found that so rude. And the rudest thing you could ever say to a woman. And I wondered, was that supposed to be provocative then, or was that just me being totally green?
No. Well,
because it
could have entailed a certain amount of greenness. It's a very New Jersey expression. It's New Jersey Italian, I think. So certainly common in New York. But I would think it's more New Jersey. It's just, instead of "thank you, it was a lovely evening, but I really should be heading home," it's just like, "I'm out of here." Get out of here.
It's so normal now, but then it was English people didn't say that, and
no.
You were so wild. It was I'll never forget seeing that play, and I've never forgotten how I felt when I came out, as though just the adrenaline was so extreme, as if I was going to pass out. It was so amazing. And when you starred in Liaison Dangereuse, you had a love affair with perhaps the most beautiful woman in the world at the time, Michelle Pfeiffer. And I wondered what happened.
It's not something I ever really talk about. I'd put it this way, Bella. In our work, the work I do normally, you make emotional bonds with people very quickly. That's kind of part of the work. Very rarely those bonds extend beyond the work. For me, she was someone I valued greatly as a colleague. Was great fun and moving, and with me, incredibly fair. And I probably wasn't. I mean, I certainly wasn't. So that's what happens. I think I've learned over the course of my life that a great colleague is actually kind of rarer than anything.
Yeah, gosh, that's interesting.
And when that relationship becomes more than collegial or more than a friendship, even a profound friendship, then at least in my experience, and it might be my particular psychology or stupidity, or ineptness, or all of the above, then you lose a great colleague. And before we started, I was mentioning Ingeborg, who we both worked with many years ago on Lady Behave, and who I met in '92, doing the second play I did in the West End, called The Slip of the Tongue, as an actor.
That's Ingeborg Adaptation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ingeborg and I are still 33 years now working together.
Yeah.
And have remained great friends and colleagues, because there was a line never crossed, and a border never crossed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I've learned, that when a thing like that happens, it's probably might be not retrievable.
Because we met when the producer Herky Belville introduced us, and I came to Paris to try and persuade you to direct a short fashion film, and you were in the middle of making Being John Malkovich, and you said, I can't do this, I don't have the time. And you said, why don't you ask Spike Jonze to do it? And I said, it has to be you. And then you suddenly said, okay, I'll do it. I've got 1.5 days on this date. Be ready.
Yeah.
And and then there was the storyline, which I'd come with my kind of presentation of Tweed and First World War lesbians, and you'd read a story about a Japanese man who'd become obsessed with tsunamis and made himself a pair of rubber underpants that would blow up in case of an emergency, and they blew up on the Tokyo subway. And how did you know this was the right story for a fashion film?
I think you never know, Bella, and it would be lacking in decorum to pretend that one knows. I think you can only have an instinct, you can only have a hunch. And so I looked very carefully what you were doing, what you were designing for. And I read the novel about Joe Cuthbert,
Oh, yes, it was...
Carstairs, which was fascinating. But I couldn't see that being done inexpensively and quickly in a way that we could have a little story and yet spend a lot of time looking at the clothes and their texture and how they looked on and how they moved and how they were structured. So I thought of that story, which I'd read some years before in an issue of Esquire magazine. And then I thought, well, this could really, though, be funny that we just have a little Japanese guy who has his little rubber underpants made. I don't know how you made them, but they were kind of fantastic. And I thought we could do this in a day and a half. And if we just have enough women to show up, and if they don't mind just goofing around, and if we have all the clothes we need and the shoes we need, which seemed all pretty ready when we did it, I thought we could have something that could be entertaining. I think with all of our films, this is what I said to him, that you were one of the best colleagues I ever had in anything, one of the very best. And that if anybody asks me what is really indicative of your work, meaning in this case, my part of our work, I would say those three films. That's actually tells you who I am. And and on a certain level, they couldn't be more girlish in that they just couldn't be more girlish, I think.
Because I remember you saying, I said, what do you think, about the story and the references? And you said, this is what I think. You told me this story, which was 2 lines. And I thought, well, he's John Malkovich. He must know what he's doing. So great, let's do that. And it was it was so fantastic, because I think I love to believe in someone else's vision.
Me too.
And it was just so enjoyable to go through your prism and just, see what happened and your certainty. And then we made 3 short films together. That one's called Strap Hanging, and then Lady Behave and Hideous Man. And you did these amazing drawings for the storyboard. And I remember showing them to my dad, and he really admired them. And
that's hilarious.
I know. So
that's too funny.
It was
to
just
even
great.
Contemplate. Oh, yeah. Well,
also,
those to me, I could have gone on doing those for a lifetime, because when each time, and all those 3 collections were very distinct. And like I said about a director, or I said about looking at fabric, I'd say that also about a collaborator. They open a world. They don't close a world. They open it. And you look at that opening and you go, look at that. Wow. Look at this. Huh. When I saw during Lady Behave, which you should probably say the basic plot of that was, I happen to know a lot of English trust fund girls, and some of them are a little bit chaotic and even a little bit piggy. And, they graze in the supermarkets, and they do things that you probably shouldn't do. And when I think of, say, Lady Behave, which was essentially a woman who is Ingeborg Dapkunite, my longtime colleague, a woman's boyfriend leaves her, who I think, Bella, you found on the street somewhere in Notting Hill or somewhere, who was not an actor and who was absolutely fantastic. It gave me the idea that their boyfriend leaves them because they are too piggish. And the house is a mess. There's spaghetti in the phone book. There are ham sandwiches in the sofa. They pick their nose with chewing gum. It's a whole kind of litany of things.
I know, because you wanted the telephone to be pulled out of the kitty litter, and that's how we opened.
Yeah. That's kind of, and this is the world that I had the fortune or misfortune, one might say, but to me it was a fortune actually, to know a little bit about. And then that told me what to do. And having Ariel Dombal told me, well, she'll be the headmistress, obviously, and she's kind of, if you would, the kind of French anti-Thatcher, or maybe, as a headmistress. What you did created my prison.
God,
and that's
so
what collegial things create, I think. Same with Hideous Man. My friend Gary Sinise had decided he would leave the theater in 1977 or 78. I don't remember the year. It was very early on. We established our little theater in the suburb of Chicago. Gary decided he would leave, and he was going to go out to Hollywood and try and, become an actor and make money and have a real living, and etc. And he got very lonely there because he missed our kind of particular sensibility at Steppenwolf and our particular kind of pathos or lack thereof. And he wrote an album which he performed himself called Hideous Man, just full of really stupid songs that were kind of pre-punk and quite brilliant in a very primitive sort of plate-headed way. And but your idea was kind of 60s, 70s protest movement and some version of that at a kind of remove, let's say. And see, to me, that made me think of Hideous Man and how great it would be to have this group of women with very, very disparate backgrounds from very different classes and races, kind of stewing in their circle, their particular circles, but they had all united to give an homage to Hideous Man.
Yeah. Because some of the time I was trying to get the storyline from you, but you would always do this thing of disappearing and going, you were filming in Russia or something, and I would leave these long messages on your answer machine, like, please. And after about a month, you rang back and was like, yeah, everything's fine. But what was good was that it forced me to create a storyline with the clothes. So I made... I remember making this jumper with "Kick Me" written on the back, because we had this brilliant actress, Camilla. I can't remember. And then the other thing I really enjoyed with our collaborations was, I remember saying, do you have any ideas for castings? And you said, 40-year-old housewife's fine by me. And I thought, no way, I'm going after everyone. I'm using your name. So we got great, like Peaches was in Hideous Man, and Anita Pallenberg, and Skin from Skunk and
Saffron.
Nancy. Saffron Burrows and Ariel Dombal.
And the girls,
I mean,
the kind of African Revolutionary Party girls.
They were just amazing.
Were just the girl who read the dream about Lorne Greene. She had a dream about Lorne Greene, that Lorne Greene fed her Alpo, which is a dog food. She was brilliant. I don't know what happened to her.
I know she was called Mercedes.
Superstar.
I saw her in my local park modeling, and went up and asked her if she'd be in our film. And then I remember you saying she's like Robert De Niro. She was brilliant.
Incredible. What happened to her?
I don't know. I lost touch with her.
Wow.
So
they were fantastic. And then there was the girl, the singer, too, from, was it not All Saints? What was it?
All Saints, yes.
Saints.
Yeah.
Oh.
She was amazing.
And Peaches, and then
Ariel was, she was just the star. She was so fantastic.
She gave the thing, what was her poem? It was one about that she did a kind of improv dialogue in kind of franglais about the chute de valeur and this and that.
She was just incredible. She brought real kind of theatre to it.
Yeah, and was just hilarious. And then James Fox came on the scooter to announce, in the best possible sort of public school way, that Hideous Man had died in a tragic accident in a trash compactor. And then that was just so dry that no bone in no desert has ever been dry. Delivering this kind of very upsetting news, and then he leaves. And then Ariel has her kind of, Edith Piaf moment that's kind of straight out of Mommy Dearest.
She was so brilliant.
Which was just hilarious beyond belief.
Because your menswear line, Techno Bohemian, I remember you drawing all the prints and all these different prints for ties, and it's incredibly rare for a designer to do that. Normally you would buy a print, or there's somebody who can do that, but you have this ability to do everything and draw prints out of your imagination. Mm-hmm. Where did that come from? It's incredible.
Although I didn't do it for decades, my father was an excellent draftsman, and I used to draw with him a lot as my son drew with me, but I hadn't done it for decades, so mostly I had to erase all the time and redraw. But I never had a shortage of ideas. For instance, some years ago I was in Lisbon, and I had a driver who was hilarious, who had a master's in psychology. And I have no idea why I came up with it, but I referred to Lisboa as Lesboa. Not just literally as Lesboa. Uh-huh. That idea, this is how wacky I am, but I think I actually think it's normal. So 10 years later, 15 years later, I wore it yesterday, actually. That notion popped into my head when I saw a woman wearing, I think it was a dress, and it's obviously based on the kind of empire style. So gather here under the breasts, and then, you know, is a long flowing kind of dress. So that was the idea. But then I said, yeah, but if I took that and I made a man's shirt and I would call it Lesboa, then that would kind of cover all the bases. And it would just
so
be a
good.
little bit shorter. It's too bad I didn't sell any of them. That's tragic, I guess. And it's, as you and I have discussed, not great for your bank account.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what it needed to be. I showed you earlier that my movie chauffeur, can't really see it here, but there's a lining, little half lining on this jacket. My first movie chauffeur was a gentleman called Mr. Mudd. He had a big scar across his face, and he was allegedly, I have no idea if he really was, a convicted murderer. This was in Thailand. And I'm not quite sure what reputation I came into the film with to have a convicted murderer as my chauffeur, but obviously it wasn't a good one. And this film was produced by the great David Putnam, who I loved and who taught me so much, David, about film and life, Lord Putnam now, and directed by Roland Joffe. And Mr. Mudd was my chauffeur, and as he was driving, my long-time friend Julian Sands and I, we met on that film and were friends forever.
Yeah.
I asked Mr. Mudd about the murder rap, and I said kind of something along the lines of, yo, what's up, Mr. Mudd? What was up with the murder rap? And he looked in the rearview mirror for kind of alarmingly long time, and he said to me, sometime mit the mud kill, sometime mit the mud not kill.
Wow.
And so when I did the lining of this, Mr. Mudd came to me. I drew 20 different Mr. Mudds of varying weights and ages, because it's hard to remember what he looked like. And there's the handwriting all around which says, sometimes Mr. Mudd kills, sometimes Mr. Mudd not kill. And so when I say there is a price that comes for getting, being allowed, being given the opportunity to do what you want, the price was money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But I did what I wanted. And I think it was worth it.
Because you've also described yourself as vain, but you seem way beyond that, much more attracted to an outlandish outfit at the expense of any vanity. And I wondered what clothes make you feel really good.
I still probably, I haven't for years and years. I don't wear suits every day at all anymore. It's strange because fashion kind of cured me of that. But I bought an old church in New Orleans because after losing a mini fortune in fashion, I needed somewhere else to lose money. So I spent a fortune on this church. And my architect said a very curious thing to me one day. He said to me, you do understand that everything doesn't have to match. And I just said, well, that's where you're wrong. Yes, it does have to match. I don't want to look at something and not have visual cohesion. It disturbs me. And it doesn't mean I can't go around looking like a slob in my everyday life. if you go to a theater rehearsal, you're rolling on the floor all day or something. Well, no real point in wearing a nice suit. Or if you're on the road all the time. But it's not really that kind of vanity. It's the vanity of what I like.
Yeah.
Not what I look like or present. Yeah. It's what I like to see. This pocket is this pocket. It's not another pocket.
Yeah.
Another pocket in this would disturb me.
Yeah.
It would alienate me.
Yeah.
It would, not give me spasms. But that's why looking at fabric never could disturb me. Because I'm looking for that one for the one of the one. Just yesterday, when I was looking at Ray Kawakuba's stuff, just thought how good she is at structure, how serious how seriously it's made, how the form of it. I looked at a Bottega Veneta dress, 6-7 pleats on one side, little thin leather belt, ankle length, just a perfect thing. Is it Molly Goddard?
Oh yeah, I love Molly Goddard.
A kind of crinoline thing.
The tulle stuff she makes.
Yeah, it just was
so beautiful.
Talent, and in the case of fashion, likes arresting things. Excellent creation provokes dreams, I think.
Yeah, it's a really good description. It's
and
exactly
me, I couldn't do without it, really. And if I ever achieve that, that's very nice, good for me. But I'm very happy when others do it.
So I wanted to ask you, because I remember soon after we met when you came round for dinner, and I remember you saying, "Oh, I'm feeling a bit down," and when I asked you why, you said, "Oh, they've turned Being John Malkovich into a sort of Bergman film," and then I wondered what happened at that point. Did you insist on a certain, editing or?
I didn't, Bella. I read the script. Script's extremely funny. For years when I was in Hollywood, which I almost never am, but I am occasionally, people would say, "Why didn't you do Being John Malkovich? Why didn't?" And the fact is, actually, I read it. My partner Ross, I was on my way back to Europe, back to France when I finished the script on the plane. I called Ross when I got there. It was 9 hours earlier in LA, and I said, find this guy, this knucklehead who wrote this, whoever it is, and have him come in and tell him I'd like to direct it, and we'll produce it. We had a deal at a studio then called Castle Rock, and I'll direct it, we'll produce it, if he'll make it about somebody else. And Charlie Kaufman came in to meet Russ, and Russ said to him, "We'd like to do it and just make it about somebody else. Call it somebody else's name, whoever you want. Then I'd love to direct it, and I don't see why it would necessarily have to change at all or anything. The jokes would be funny, whether they're about me or really a lot of other people." And Charlie said, "No, I don't want to do that. Thank you. But I'm glad he likes it. But no, I don't want to do that. I like it like this." So nothing ever happened with it. Then years passed, and Francis Coppola called me and asked me if I would go to Paris and meet a boy called Spike Jonze, meet a young man called Spike Jonze. And I said, of course. So I took the train up some weeks or days later, whatever it was, and Spike was happened to be in Paris. And And I met with him, and after about an hour, I said, just like, excuse me, what, are you American? You're an American, right? Because he had this very peculiar way of talking. People would say that about me as well. He always sounded like a kind of surfer, skateboarder dude, but with some kind of foreign twist. And he looked kind of Czech, but it turned out, no, it wasn't. And he wanted to do Being John Malkovich, and I really liked him. He eventually got John Cusack and Catherine Keener and Cameron Diaz and Orson Bean and Mary Kay Place, and really fantastic cast. And originally in Being John Malkovich, the part of my best friend was written for Kevin Bacon, who I actually did know only in the kind of, we once worked on a film together briefly. Kevin didn't want to do it, I think. And so they were casting around for that part, and I said to Spike that I thought Charlie Sheen would be a great choice as my best friend. And Spike kind of said, you're a friend of Charlie Sheen's? And I said, no, I've never met Charlie Sheen. But I think he'd be great. He's extremely funny, and he'd be great at this role, I think. Fantastic. And so Spike wasn't very convinced, and he called me back a day or two later and said, he's in lockdown for, he was in rehab for drugs, and that means the people have to follow you inside the toilet.
Oh my God.
I said, well, yeah, but, that's okay. So anyway, he cast Charlie. We made the film, and that was uneventful, really. I liked Spike very much. I enjoyed working. The majority of my work was with Keener, who I find hilarious and really enjoyed as a person, and with Charlie, who was great. And so I went to see it at the Hard Rock Cafe. Anyway, we sat and watched the film. I don't think I ever smiled once. I don't think I ever laughed.
Wow.
And I called Spike later that day when it got late enough for him to be up in LA to say, please don't show this film to Gilles Jacob. If it's accepted for Cannes, I'm not sure he'll ever work again. And please don't show it to him. And I told him, Spike may remember the conversation better or differently, I don't know. But I think I told him, I think you've taken this film and you've made a Bergman film out of it, but it was already a Bergman film. So, and what's gone is the kind of Jewish vaudeville aspects of it. That's gone. Nothing is funny. When Keener said to John Cusack in the cut I saw, so tell me, are you married? This was John's response. So tell me, are you married? Like 10 seconds past it. Yeah, but what? What was that? Well, as written, it's, so tell me, are you married? Yeah, but enough about me. Okay. Big difference.
Yeah. God.
And I said to Spike, I think you need to cut, my estimation is 21 minutes. I know the film is in there. I know you've made a terrific thing, but you got to get ruthless now. And he told me, which I always thought was hilarious, he told me I was too close to it. And I kind of thought, what are you talking about? Why would I be close to it? Because it has my name? Who cares? It just actually has nothing to do with me. It's just called Being John Malkovich. And I'm a kind of figure, as one is in any movie. You're a figure in someone else's dream. That's what you are. But I actually exist for the time being. And I'm not a figure in anybody else's dream. So this is a film, I think, very, very cleverly written and very, very cleverly made, but this isn't it. And about 6 weeks later, I was doing a film in Luxembourg. He faxed me a note, which I have in my little scrapbook, just basically saying, listen, would you mind taking a look at the film again? I didn't take your advice. I didn't cut 21 minutes. I only cut 19 minutes and 43 seconds or something like that. But would you look at it again? And I wrote back, of course, saying, but of course I'll look at it 50 times if you want me to look at it. And then that was the film that was released.
Wow.
And the thing I remember most, because I only saw it once in Venice, where it actually ended up in the film festival, because it was rejected by Cannes.
God, really?
But I'm glad, because then we got the film we got. And I'll never forget in Venice when the audience kind of comprehended that Charlie Sheen was my best friend, and that's the go-to guy when you're dealing with a problem involving a coven of lesbian witches. There was a rolling laugh, Bella, that just lasted 10 minutes. The kind of outrage and the absurdity and the kind of hilarity of Charlie Sheen and I as best friends. That, to me, was the big difference.
God.
That it retained all the elements it had of the kind of the Jewish, what I call the Jewish vaudeville aspect.
It was terribly good. I mean, it's just one of the great films. And so, I mean, for a supposed independent film, so many people have seen it. And it's just, I mean, one of the things, in fact, you mentioned about actors say they need to be able to sympathize with their characters, but you said, I don't feel the need to be sympathetic, but people love you for you, and in spite of how unsympathetic your character might be, and we really want to love you. And do you feel that when you're performing? I mean, even in a film, because there is this will to love you regardless of how demonic your role is.
I know what you mean. I can't say I feel it. What I feel is, I think I sense that generally people trust me to go as far as I can in presenting something truthful about this person. I think people, by and large, kind of have a faith that's what I'm trying to do. I'd say that.
Yeah.
Of course, mostly one fails, but the attempt matters to people, that you're trying to do something.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that it's a great honor, but also a great responsibility and duty to you play an imaginary character. That's the only life that person will ever have. Those are the only feelings they'll ever be able to express. They don't have a life, they're imaginary. That's our job, is to make people want to find out what is going to happen to that person.
Gosh.
So for me, it's just the work, that's the work.
And if you fancy someone and don't like what they're wearing, does it kill your attraction?
No. I mean, no. No. I think there are some unfortunate looks, let's say. But I don't think most people, a lot of people don't care at all. A lot of men don't care. And it depends on the country. I mean, obviously, you're much more likely to see men, say, better dressed in London or Paris, maybe, or Milan, or maybe Rome, but that wouldn't necessarily hold true for Leeds or Prato or Marseille. So, no, I don't. It doesn't much bother me.
You don't have a
if it's
pet
interesting
hate of a piece of clothing or woman. I mean, your wife Nicole always dresses exquisitely. I mean, she has the most amazing taste. But I wondered if there's been anything where you've just thought, "Oh my God, that's changed the direction of my feeling about somebody."
I don't think so. I mean, Nicole was always very well put together, but she almost never shops, ever.
Do you buy her things? Yeah.
And my ex-wife as well wasn't much of a shopper at all, or almost never too. But I grew up picking my sister's clothes. I had 3 little sisters, now only 1. Ironing them, washing them, etc.
Wow.
So for me, it was really normal.
Are you a heavy packer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, it's a terrible habit. But on the other hand, I did a film this spring, Martin McDonagh's new film on Easter Island. I had to go to LA before, so half of my suitcase was dress clothes because I had a movie premiere and 3 days of press or whatever it was, blah, 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 that isn't very useful on Easter Island. And it's heavy. But so it really depends. There isn't something I take always, except I take my On sneakers, or
nice.
my very, very old school Vans. This one, there's a whole other suitcase that has to do with what I had to bring to Amsterdam and what I'm taking from France. Without that, I'd just have one suitcase and it'd be kind of 13 kilos. It wouldn't be gigantic. But now it's 2 at 20 kilos.
Yeah.
And that's a lot to drag around.
Well, thank you so much, John,
Thank you,
for being on Passion Neurosis. It's been so lovely talking about everything that we've done and listening to what you're doing and all these other things that I didn't know. I didn't know that you'd even read that book about Whale K when we first met.
Course,
I thought you'd just plucked this brilliant, succinct notion out of the ether.
No, I read the book and I liked it very much. I was fascinated by it. I knew nothing about her. She had an incredible life.
Yeah.
Drove ambulances, slept with Marlene Dietrich. I mean,
So good, wasn't
she was
it?
a happening person, I
Yeah.
would say. But yeah, I love doing those films. It was fantastic. Just love them and love working with you and happy to do this. Sorry it took so long.
No, it's been just such a joy, means so much to me. It's great. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
too.
John.
Cheers.